So this is what I'm talking about. That we have communication that goes from body to mind to body. I'm calling it the body-brain, and brain to brain. And we're going to learn why disease is not really disease, specifically cancer, since this is a cancer conference. So this is who I am. I'm Jane Goldberg. I'm an oncological psychoanalyst. I am in New York. I am a psychoanalyst that has specialized in working with cancer patients psychoanalytically. I know that seems a little outdated, but it's really not, and I think you'll understand why by the end of my talk. I own 2 holistic centers. My first one was in Puerto Rico. I actually was in Puerto Rico before Ann Wigmore was there. Casa, Spa and Wellness, Puerto Rico. I closed it for about 1.5 years to renovate it, and we were poised to open, and I had my first workshop on September the 20th. Does everyone know what happened on September the 20th? I had a flight on Delta, and Miss Maria, she had a flight of her own, and she arrived there before I did. So now we're renovating the renovation, but we will be open at some point. And then after that, I opened my center in New York, also Casa Spa and Wellness, and I write. I have also created these other systems. But what I'm doing now is creating brain exercise, which is very exciting for me. Because so Carla said she was 50, and we were really amazed at how good she looks.
The sound is not good.
Thank you. I'll be 72 in 2 months. 70 is the new 50. So I congratulate Carla because she really looks amazing. But I know this is lifestyle. Lifestyle trumps genes. I've been vegetarian for 50 years. I'm 95% raw. I exercise every day, except today I haven't had a chance. So everything that Carla said is right. Take it as gospel. And I do a lot of blogging, and I'm happy to subscribe anybody that wants to my blog, Musings from 20th Street, because my spa wellness center in Manhattan is on 20th Street. I've written 8 books. I brought a few of them with me, and I have a table in the, not here in the booths, but in a booth in the side room. And I'll have some brochures and books. So this is my wellness center in New York. I made it look like the wellness center in Puerto Rico. It looks like a tropical forest in there. This is a view from my property in Puerto Rico. So, I don't even need to read this, do I? Get cancer after you don't have insurance. So, you have cancer, you know somebody with cancer, you're going to get cancer, you've had cancer, whatever. Cancer's in your life because it's in everyone's life. And you want to get cured. And, you know, guys are getting killed and they're getting arrested for practicing medicine without a license, that kind of thing, because they're using the C word for the C disease. They're saying they can cure cancer. So I have a new definition of cure, which is much better anyway than saying I'm going to get rid of your cancer. And that is to look at the etymology of the word from Greek, Latin. And cura actually means bringing active concern, care, sorrow, concern. I like the C words, care and concern. And then if you go farther back in the etymology of it, you come to curiosity, and that's really the key. You have to be curious about everything, but you specifically have to be curious about what's wrong. Einstein, I have no special talents, I'm only passionately curious. And of course he had special talents, but among them was that he was passionately curious. So if we look at how medicine is practiced today, we see that there are a lot of problems with it, and I've just delineated 5 of these here. One is that we're trying to address chronic disease as though it were an acute disease, and so the medicine that we're practicing today is about a century old. Chronic and acute diseases are very, very different, which I'll go into in a minute. We're treating diseases as manifestations of the body instead of that the body and the brain and the mind are all one big constellation. I'm calling it body-brain constellation. So you got to look at all of the aspects of what might be causing difficulty and disease. We're treating the symptom of the disease as the disease, and this is especially true with cancer, which I'm going to go into. And then the notion that negative feelings are bad, like a disease is bad. So as a psychoanalyst, I talk a lot about feelings, and I talk a lot about the psyche, and I talk at holistic centers and conferences, and I hear the same thing, and it drives me up a wall. All of the medical doctors now are on to the mind-body psychosomatic thing, and that's really great that they're doing it, but they have a very simplistic formula, which is that don't have negative feelings. You're going to beat this. Have hope. Think positively. Well, not everybody does that automatically. So I'm going to go into that, and then the notion that stress is bad, and I know we had a talker earlier today. I didn't hear it because I was at Hippocrates, but you're going to learn how stress is not bad. Some kind of stress is bad. We're going to look at the difference. So acute diseases versus chronic diseases, they're very different. Acute diseases have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end, you've developed antibodies in your body and antigens, and so you're stronger than you were before you got the acute disease, which you're now cured from. If you get a flu, you will never get that flu again. You'll get another variant of the flu, but you won't get that one. All of these are the acute diseases, and obviously, in the Middle Ages, people died of a lot of those things, but we're not dying so much of acute diseases. We're dying of these diseases, the chronic degenerative diseases. So our body is a very complicated system, and it's always rebirthing and renewing itself. And if you don't have enough energy on the cellular level to either repair old or injured cells or create new cells, you don't have enough energy, cellular energy, to stay alive. So the key to health is figuring out how to get the cell to feel really vitalized and healthy. All of these diseases are the diseases, well, let me look at the picture first. So you see, there's the unhealthy cell, the membrane doesn't allow toxins to go out and doesn't absorb the nutrients to come in. So that's what causes these various diseases. So myth 2 is that they're separate. We are body-brain. They're not separate, and they like to talk to each other. They're always talking to each other. The question is, can you understand the language that they speak? So I'm going to try to help you to understand the language that they speak. And they participate in the deepest, most exquisite conversational happening within our intergalactic world. It's really pretty amazing how the body and the brain talk to each other, communicate to each other. So cancer is a psychosomatic disease. This has been around for a really long time as an idea, since the 2nd century. Galen developed the idea. And he tied it into depression. Carolyn Thomas in 1946 also tied it into depression. My experience is that sometimes cancer patients have depression, sometimes they don't. I work with cancer patients that tend to present the picture that they're at a dead end in their lives. They just don't know where it is that they need to be going and where they should be going. I had one patient who came to me in psychoanalysis, and she had been living her life taking care of her 2 brothers who were both in prison. They were political prisoners in another country. So she was spending her life bringing them food and bringing clean sheets and blah, blah, blah. When she was diagnosed with cancer, she said, thank God. She was at a no exit state, and the cancer gave her a way out. That's why she said. And so she went on a nutritional program. She detoxed. She went into analysis. She herself is now an analyst herself. And she will never get cancer again. And she's fine. She did the C word. So basically, the body-brain communication is an information superhighway. They're always chatting away. And feelings are the language of the body, and thoughts are the language of the brain. I'm going to go into that. You're going to get a little lesson in Brain 101 in a few minutes, and you're going to understand why and how that happens. And together, they're the language of what we call the psyche. So I really like this graphic because if you look at it, you see that neutral is all black and happiness is mostly red. So if you look at what we call the bad feelings, depression, sadness, shame, they still have light. The opposite of happiness is neutral. Feelings. Feelings count. We need to have feelings, even when they're what we call bad feelings. Not having feelings at all is the worst state to be in. So if our body and our brain are communicating with each other effectively and we're listening and everything is synchronized, we have health. But if there's a block in the communication, then there's a problem. So it may start out as a whisper, it may come as a dream. I have patients that have had dreams that have given them the information that their body is in trouble. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And if you don't, so there may be another whisper, it may be, I have kind of a pain, but I'm ignoring it, or a cough that I'm ignoring, whatever. And then it becomes a loud scream that you basically can't ignore because it's too painful or you can't get out of bed or whatever it is. We need to listen to the whispers before they get to screams. So, I like this. The body-brain operates like the US government was set up to operate. It's a system of checks and balances. They're always looking at each other and trying to calibrate with each other. And of course we know the three systems of government are supposed to be doing that. To the extent that they are doing that. That's a different topic, different day. So what we're trying to do is return the body-brain constellation back to normalcy, or what is called in the business, homeostasis. So myth 3 is thinking the symptom is the disease, and the truth is that the symptom is simply a manifestation of an underlying disorder. So with cancer, when we hear the scream is usually the tumor screaming. It might be impinging on a nerve, or maybe it's a lump in the breast and it's not really screaming because we're not in pain, but it is screaming because we just found a lump. Oh God, we have a lump. But the fact is that tumors are a life-saving mechanism. So I'm going to go in a minute and go into how the body has repair mechanisms. One of them is isolation. So when the body is toxic, in its greater wisdom, it will take these toxins and it will put them in one place. And that place is the tumor. So the tumor is simply a collection of toxins that if all those toxins were circulating around the body, you would be much sicker than you are. The problem with chemotherapy and radiation is that not only is your body toxic, and now the toxins are situated in the tumor, but also those treatments, they're the best treatments for reducing the size of a tumor. So if you think that the tumor is the disease, the symptom is the disease, then reducing the tumor is a good idea. But if you think that the tumor is a manifestation of an underlying disorder, you don't care about how big or small the tumor is. And when you try to make it smaller rapidly, as chemotherapy and radiation do, then all of that toxicity that's been stored away in this isolated place, in this one place, then it's circulating freely through the body. And if you can keep up with elimination, and so all of the toxicity is coming out, maybe you're doing colon cleansing or you're doing infrared saunas, then all of that helps. But if the elimination is not keeping pace with the circulation of the toxins, then you become auto-intoxicated and you get sick. And it hasn't helped your cancer condition. So learn to love your tumor. Your tumor is trying to help you, as crazy as that sounds. So cancer itself is not the mistake. The mistake is thinking that the manifestation of the cancer, usually the tumor, is the mistake. The mistake is in the way we see it and the way most Western doctors see it. Inflammation is usually an end result of a long battle with cancer, even maybe before you know that you have cancer. Inflammation is not a mistake. Fever is the body's natural chemotherapy. Usually when you have inflammation, you may not have fever, it may just be a local spot that gets hot, but it does increase the temperature of wherever it is that the inflammatory response is happening. Cancer is not in primitive cultures. And it's not in wild animals. I know a lot of domesticated animals are getting cancer now. Well, why wouldn't they? Because we're feeding the same shit food that, you know, most of the planet is feeding itself, at least most of our country. So I think we need to return back to our origins. We need to return back to what real food is, what real living is. I've got shoes on and I'm standing on a carpet, which is on top of wood. I am being disconnected from Earth's natural energy. I'm not walking barefoot on Earth. My dog Petey goes out in the woods behind my house and he's barefoot and he's absorbing the Earth's magnetic gravitational field through his body. And when he comes to me and I hug him, he has become an electron donor to my body. I'm an electron stealer and he's making me healthier because he's walking on the earth, which we hardly ever do. So I make a point whenever I'm in my house in New Jersey, I make a point of going out to the woods and hugging a tree. Same thing as walking barefoot. So the last holistic newsletter that I sent out, my musings from 20th Street, was actually on tree hugging. And there's real science behind it. In fact, Mount Sinai in New York Hospital, they redid the whole hospital so that all of the recovery rooms had a view of trees, Central Park. Because the research shows, and it's real medical documented research, shows that when you see a tree, you recover faster. So these are the repair mechanisms that I was referring to earlier. So regeneration is the first one. These are for very primitive animals. You know, if that salamander loses his teeth, his tail, he'll grow it back. And these are the various time periods that it takes for us to regenerate various parts of our body. So far, humans have not developed the ability to regrow an arm if it's cut off, but guess what? It's happening. It's going to happen. So I mentioned isolation in terms of the cancer tumor. So I hurt my thumb, I hit it with a hammer, but my foot doesn't hurt. It's isolated. The reason why I have a picture of the oyster with pearls is because when an oyster is infected with a parasite, it forms a mucous membrane around the parasite, and that hardens it off from the rest of the oyster so it doesn't kill the oyster. And eventually that mucous membrane converts to a beautiful pearl. And inflammation, this is a repair mechanism that is available only to biologically mature organisms, humans, and all of these diseases, which is pretty much everything that's going to afflict most of us, they're all related to inflammation. Chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is a fever. I have a fever, I have 103 fever, and I have it for 3 days and then it's gone. And whatever it is that gave me that fever, I'm recovered from. So bad feelings. I'm going to talk a lot about feelings because that is actually my profession as a psychoanalyst. Should we be medicating bad feelings? So I'm calling it the tyranny of optimism. All feelings represent who you are. You can't label your feelings as either good or bad. They all represent you on a very basic and authentic level. So don't disparage yourself for having feelings of hopelessness or despair or anger. Depression is actually not a feeling. Depression is, as we saw in that picture, it's basically a semi-shutting down. Neutral is a complete shutting down, but depression is a semi-shutting down. Okay, so why is F the most important letter in the alphabet? Here's our brain lesson, Brain 101. Okay, so this is the part of the, your brain is developed into, from 3 parts in different periods of evolution. This was the first part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain, and it only does 4 things. Fight, flight, feed, and frolic. And frolic, of course, is a euphemism for everyone knows. And then this is called the mammalian brain. This is the next evolution of the brain. And in this part of the brain, feelings came about. Good feelings and what we call bad feelings. I don't want to call them bad feelings. It's just what we refer to as bad feelings. So the Nazi feel-good police, they don't want you to have bad feelings. What innovative medical procedure was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1949? I will tell you the answer. The answer is lobotomy. oh, don't have any feelings. Let's just, stick a pick through your eye and destroy part of your brain and you won't have any feelings at all. That's a good plan. So the guy who invented the procedure of lobotomy was Portuguese, but here in the United States, we haven't done so much better because in the 70s, they started trying to destroy people's amygdalas because the amygdala is more the seat of aggression than the rest of the brain. The problem is that, first of all, we didn't have neuroimaging, so they didn't even know which part of the amygdala to go to. And what's the definition of pathological aggression? And how intense does the feeling have to be if it's only a feeling but not behavior? Obviously, if aggression is being acted out in behavior, then something has to happen to help that person. But if it's only on a feeling level, it's a little problematic to define it as problematic. So when we start thinking about feelings as a problem or as a disease, they don't just go away. They go into hiding. They go into the unconscious. And that can be quite dangerous. So feelings actually only have a lifespan of 90 seconds. You can keep your feeling for a much longer time. You can keep your feeling of revenge. No, I'm going to get my neighbor because he ran over my cat. You can keep it for a decade. But in terms of the neurocircuitry of the feeling, it's gone in 90 seconds. So whatever it is that's happening, that you're holding on to that feeling after 90 seconds, it has nothing to do with your nervous system anymore. Good feelings produce oxytocin. This is called the love hormone. I like alliteration, so I'm calling it love lollipop, hug hormone, cuddle chemical, moral molecule. This feels really good. Point is, it's removed from the bloodstream in 5 minutes. Bad feelings, back to fight and flight, they produce cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It puts us into sympathetic on position. When we're stuck in sympathetic on position, we're like this. And cortisol takes as long as 2 hours to be removed from the bloodstream. So what's the point? The point is that what we're calling the bad feelings, the fight-flight feelings, they last a lot longer in the body than the love hormone. All of our feelings are friends. We need to be aware of them. We need to use them. We need to be interested and curious about them. And then this is the newest part of the brain. About 9,000 years ago, we developed the part of the brain that we call the neocortex, which is where the mind sits. And I know this is really weird. This is the F letter for this part of the brain, which is farming. So this is what happened. I know you're not going to believe me, but this is what my research showed. So, they were sitting under a tree and some fruit fell from the tree and, they picked up a peach and it had been sitting there for 3 days and so they squeezed it maybe and drank the juice, or maybe they ate it and it was kind of rotten and it was fermented. Remember Carla was talking about fermentation? So they were eating fermented fruit. Well, what happens when you ferment fruit? I mean, you can ferment vegetables and you get, like she said, you get good probiotics. You ferment fruit. What happens when you ferment grapes, for instance? So our ancestors were sitting on the ground, they were drinking this fermented fruit or eating it, and they were feeling pretty good. And, but however, the guys who were getting drunk were fine, but the guys who weren't getting drunk, they didn't like the people who were acting drunk. And you know that from your own life, right? If you're not drinking and you're with people that are drunk, it's kind of obnoxious. So they decided that they had to invent mathematics. Does that say 20? I can't read it.
10.
Can you say what it says?
10.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
I gotta go really fast. So they invented mathematics to count how many beers and wines and whatever it is that alcoholic beverages they were drinking. And then we became human and we began to have pretty complex mental skills, including language. Language is a supernatural force. Language is what integrates mind and body and brain. Language is what defines us uniquely as human. We have the most sophisticated language that exists on the planet. So stress is a mistake. Stress gives us great pleasure. Stress was invented by Heinz Selye. He was torturing these little mice on a rooftop in Canada, starving them, making them cold, and they got sick, and he invented the term stress. So stress, is this person sick or is this person sick? She's exercising, he's sick. The physiological signs are the same. Is he angry? Is she having an orgasm? The heart's doing the same thing. So stress, if it's acute, is really good for you. The study in Denmark showed that women that reported the highest level of stress, they had a 40% chance of getting breast cancer. Okay, I'm from New Orleans. I went to hear the New Orleans team, basketball professional team, at the stadium in Brooklyn. And I got really, I've never seen a professional basketball game before in my life. But because it was my home team, I got really excited and I wanted them to win and I was going, rah, rah. The game went into 3 overtimes. It was so exciting. I had a lot of stress. And then I walked out, the game was over. My team won, yay, go team. And then I'm walking through the stadium and I see a big sign over a door and it says, meditation room. Whoa, these guys, they know that when you get too stressed out, you just need to breathe and calm down, meditate. So if the diseases themselves are not the mistakes, what are the mistakes? The mistakes are the things that we do. The mistakes are the mistakes we humans are making. Sugar, corn, wheat, too much protein, drugs, processed food, and sitting. Why sitting? Because if I sit, my hip flexors suddenly go into this position. And this is the fight-flight position for hip flexors. So my body feels that it's in danger. And even though I might, get pretty calm, and I might even fall asleep sitting, which I do sometimes in front of the TV, my body knows that it's under stress because of my hip flexors. So I now have a stand-up desk, and I recommend that all of you get that if you work on the computer. So it's all about bounceability. It's all about returning back to homeostasis. Life begets life. Hydrogen, yes, hydrogen. Carla's right, hydrogen. Hydrogen is the new oxygen. Oxygen, light, energy, water, radiation. I'm going to talk about that quickly. And language. Language, of course, is how we are with each other. Research on hydrogen's pretty new, but it does all of these amazing things. All of that. It does everything that you need. Oxygen. We need oxygen. O3 is ozone. It's added a molecule to O2. Somebody was asking about ozonated water. Ozonated water is great. Ozone kills every pathogen known to mankind. It kills cancer cells upon contact. If you can get the ozone into where the cancer cell is, it will kill it. Of course you can't, because the cancers are all internal. But you can still do IV ozone. We have a steam cabinet that does ozone. We give our clients ozonated water. It's a good thing to do. Far infrared salt sauna. I can't believe they have a salt sauna here. I'm so excited. But we have infrared salt sauna at my center, and the combination is really unsurpassed. Wherever you have light, you have cellular vitality. Light gives cell energy. Increasing voltage with PMF. I love the PMF technology, pulsed electromagnetic. So that means that is giving energy to your body on a cellular level. This was discovered with, why do I say who won the space war? The Russians did, if y'all think the Americans did. We didn't. They sent Yuri Gagarin up. He was up in space for an hour and 30 minutes, something like that, a very short period of time. He came back near death. His entire metabolic system had collapsed. So the Russians said, we can't send anybody out until we know how to fix this. And what they discovered is that when you separate yourself from Earth's electromagnetic gravitational field, everything starts dying. So every manned space flight since that first one with Yuri has had PMF technology in it. By the way, he never recovered. He committed suicide 7 years later. Poor Yuri. Flotation. This is a large bathtub. It's about the size of a walk-in closet. It's got 800 pounds of Epsom salt. You don't have a flotation chamber in your house, but you have a bathtub, and you can buy Epsom salts at the drugstore. It's amazing. Our flotation chamber, the water is heated to skin temperature, so there's no nerve transmission from your body to your brain. You go into the most relaxed state you've ever been in your life, and you're buoyant above the water or on the water, on top of the water, so you're floating and you're anti-gravity. It's one of the best detoxes you can do. They say that an hour floating with all that Epsom salt is equivalent to a 2 or 3 day fast. And in terms of the rejuvenation on the brain, because you're so relaxed, they're saying an hour in the float room is equivalent to 5 hours of sleep. Colon detoxification, gotta clean through the colon. Colon is one of the great eliminative channels that we have. So this is a person that had PMF first and then she had a colonic. This is all mucus junk that came out. This is someone else who had, she did a rectal insufflation with ozone and then it stimulated peristaltic movement. She ran to the bathroom and ejected a worm that was a foot long. The worm was alive inside her. The ozone killed it and then she ejected it in the toilet. You probably have stuff like that in your intestinal tract. Okay, the hormesis effect. So this is one of the books that I wrote. So my little dog Lily was dying. This was about 10 years ago. She's about this big and she's 6 pounds. And I was a week into vet bills, $3,000. Nobody knew what was wrong with her. They all knew she was dying. She hadn't moved, she hadn't eaten, she hadn't drunk. I was keeping her alive by bringing her to the vet and getting her subcutaneously rehydrated. Then one of my psychoanalytic patients came in and said, "Oh, what's the matter with Lily?" I said, "I don't know, she's dying and I don't know what to do about it." So she said, "Bring her to Donna." So I went to Donna on the Upper West Side, wherever Donna was. I met her that night. And she gave Lily a PMF treatment, pulsed electromagnetic treatment. Remember, Uri Gagarin. So, and then I put her on the floor and she walked. She hadn't moved in a week. She hadn't had enough energy. And she walked. She had curiosity to see where she was. She was conferred energy with the PMF machine. And then Donna said, "Does she want some hormesis water?" And I said, "I don't know. What is that?" And she put a water bowl down with a little stone in it. And I said, "Well, what's that rock doing?" She said, "Oh, that's radioactive." So I jumped 10 feet, as all of you would have, I'm sure. And that began a long journey that led to a book and also a documentary that is online. You can find it because people are dying. So low-level radiation gives fertility, it gives health, it gives longevity, it gives everything that you need. Low-level radiation, very different than what the dentist does, very different than what they do with radiation therapy, which is high intensity and destroys tissue. This doesn't destroy tissue. This stimulates the repair mechanism of the body. So you will get healthier. I put the same stone that Lily had. I put a similar stone in my water. I'm drinking radioactive water. I put a radioactive pad under my sheet, so I'm sleeping on a radioactive pad. So believe it or not, before Fukushima, the Japanese were the ones that knew the most about radiation because of obvious reasons. They studied it. And when you would go, again, before Fukushima, you'd go to a spa in Japan and you would be in a room that's painted with radioactive paint. Or you would be in a hot spring. Every hot spring that you have ever gone to has radon. It's radioactive. If it's a hot spring, by definition, it is radioactive. So the Japanese studied the people that were exposed to the bomb in concentric circles going from the epicenter all the way out. And what they found is that the people in the epicenter were the first people that died. They died from the burns, actually. And then they looked at the people that were all the way out that had no dose of radiation. And then they came in a little and they looked at the people that had low-level radiation exposure. Guess who lives longer? The people with low-level radiation are still living. The people with no exposure have started to die. They are not living longer, they are living less long. Bernie Cohen did a study on radon. He did the largest epidemiological study ever done in the United States. So he took a map of all of the cancer places in the United States and overlaid on that a map of all the radon, and he expected to find high radon, high cancer. He didn't. He found the opposite. And he controlled it for all of the variables possible, and he didn't believe the results. And then 5 years later, he repeated the same study, and he found the same results, and so he went into his basement and turned off his radon eliminator. About 30 years ago, $1 billion industry when they discovered that radon can cause cancer, and high-level radon can, but low-level radon doesn't. So in New Jersey, all of the houses that have been sold for the last 30 years have to be tested to see if there's radon in the basement. And so they created this business to make radon detectors and then radon eliminators. So when Bernie Cohen found the results from the second study, he went into the basement and turned off the radon eliminator. I decided maybe I should open up a spa in my basement in New Jersey instead of having a radon eliminator. And energy medicine, I love energy medicine. I have 3 systems. The first 2 are Russian, and these will tell you 5 years ahead because it's reading on a frequency level. It doesn't tell you what's biologically manifested. It tells you what you have on a frequency level. If you have it on a frequency, it's there before it's biologically manifested. So I can tell you, you have a predilection for getting breast cancer or pancreatic cancer. And I can tell you, you have a cyst in the left ventricle of your amygdala in your brain or in your ovary or whatever. The systems have amazing accuracy.
Do you want to leave time for questions? Because
I do. How much time do I have for questions?
We have about 10 minutes, but you gotta...
Yeah, so this is just, they also give treatments, these energy systems. And I do just want to say something about psychoanalysis because that really is my passion besides holistic health. And psychoanalysis really is a holistic treatment because we're asking why. When a cancer patient comes in and tells me they have cancer, I just say, what caused your cancer? Why do you have cancer? It doesn't matter what they know or don't know. It's a question to their unconscious. They'll have a thought. They'll have a feeling. They'll have something they'll give me, and then we'll work. And so these are the other diseases that I can talk about, how these really are corrections of the body. They're the body trying to calibrate something that's wrong. It's not a disease. It's a checks and balances. These are your friends. If you figure out what's causing this dysfunction, you figure out how to get rid of it. Thank you. I just want to say about the onions. I read a study that showed that when people get food poisoning from egg salad or tuna, whatever, being out in the sun, and you think it's the mayonnaise, it's the onion. It's the onions. The onions, like Carla said, they grow bacteria like crazy. Do not chop up half an onion and put the other half in the refrigerator. I'm happy for questions. Maybe I gave you so much information you have no questions. Yes?
2 questions really. Anything on bioresonance therapy, and also...
The bioresonance is the energy systems that I use.
Okay, I wasn't sure. And then as far as the PEMF, the Beamer system is something that is out there, but they're very expensive. What would you recommend?
Beamer has a lot of medical research behind it,
yeah.
So it does increase circulation, so does the QRS. Those are $4,000. Mine was $22,000. Mine has much higher intensity. When people come to my center, they may come for PMF, they may come for hydrogen. We do a hydrogen inhalation now. And if they are really suffering with a condition, I don't want them. I say, don't come back. You need to do this every day. This needs to be your lifestyle. So, yeah, and ozone. I tell people to buy their own ozone systems. So you might have to spend $15,000, but you've got it for life, and you have your life.
Yeah, I've held back from doing the ozone systems. I do direct ozone, but the ozone systems, from what I hear, you don't get that much from them.
No, I don't agree. I had a bacterial infection in my ear. I was going to a doctor and getting IV ozone. We don't do that at my center. We do steam ozone and then the insufflations. I had 4 IV treatments, no change. I went downstairs. I live above my center. I went downstairs, I did the steam cabinet, and I felt better for the first time. I think that the ozone going through the pores of your body is just as effective as going into the blood directly.
It makes sense. I'll be seeing you.
Good.
Just curious. Hi. Thanks, that was great.
Thank
curious,
you.
the woman whose 2 brothers were in prison,
Yes.
can you tell us what kind of cancer she had?
She found out she had cancer because she was trying to get pregnant, and then found out that she had breast cancer. And now her oldest daughter got married last summer. So she obviously was able to get pregnant after she detoxed, did nutrients, became a psychoanalyst herself. She came in about a year ago. She found 2 ticks on her body last summer. And she brought them to the lab and they tested negative for Lyme, but she wanted me to check her on the matrix decoder anyway, so I did. And I didn't find any Lyme disease, but you can go down, 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 you know, into tissue and into all the tendons, and, you know, you can go down to the DNA level. So I was in her DNA, and there were 3 long Latin words that I'd never seen before in the system. And I've been, you know, scanning a lot of people with the system, so I pretty much knew what most people have. So I said, listen, just read me these letters on the other computer so I can Google it. So I went to my stand-up desk and on my other computer, and she got to the 5th letter of the first word and stopped dead in her tracks and said, oh my God. And I said, what? And she said, this is the disease that killed my mother. It's a very rare lung disease. So my patient, who again is now a psychoanalyst herself, she has this on a genetic level, but she'll be fine. She cured herself of cancer. She's not going to get this. She's on a good lifestyle. Lifestyle trumps genes. Yes?
Thank you. I saw in your bio that your mom healed herself from bone cancer, and I'm
Yes.
just curious if you could talk a little bit about that.
My mother did heal herself from bone cancer. This was, I don't know the math. It was at least 50 years ago. We went to California. Bernard Jensen was alive. He was the leading nutritionist then, and he put her on a diet, and she detoxed. We did colon cleansing every day. And she found a psychoanalyst in New Orleans, and so the doctor said, so, you know, we hear about these remissions now, but 50 years ago, the doctor said, I've never seen this before, where the cancer had eaten away your pelvic bone. That is fine now. No. The bone, yes, the bone regrew. Yes, that's the point. Yeah. Yeah, there was no cancer. So she went from being in a wheelchair to playing tennis again. That was breast metastasized to the pelvic bone. The eating that they promote here is the... Yes, you already know the answer.
Hi, I know exactly where the spa is. I used to walk past it all the time.
How lovely. You actually look familiar. I see you on 20th Street.
New York. Will you be around for a while?
I'm here for all 3 days.
Perfect.
And I've got a booth again in the far room, not out here, but in the far room. But I just got here, because again, I was at Hippocrates, so I have brochures, and I have cards, and I have some of my books. That's all I brought.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. You gave a lot of great information.
Thank you.
You were talking about colon cleanses quite a bit, and I did have a really good question because it's very puzzling. You get bipolar answers the more you research. I went to Hippocrates and I learned about wheatgrass and wheatgrass implants, but I've also been doing a lot of research about coffee cleanses and how it creates glutathione and how it opens the bile ducts in your liver and different things. What's your take on coffee enemas?
Yes, coffee enemas are basically for the liver. They don't clean the colon. I mean, you know, some material will come out, but it's basically to detox the liver. So if you have a toxic liver, that's a good thing to do. Wheatgrass is more pervasive. Wheatgrass affects the whole body.
Okay.
And of course, wheatgrass you're doing from the top and the bottom.
But it's not a negative thing, in other words, it's...
Coffee enema?
Yeah, it has its positive...
Jane, I want to speak to that. This is Ann. I'm over here at the other microphone. So I started doing coffee enemas in February of 1995 just before I began the Gerson program. I still do one a day to this day. I have a lot of evidence on our website that I posted over the years. It's never had a level 1 study, large-scale randomized multi-center clinical trial, but it has a lot of other backup evidence. It's very useful to cleanse the liver. It's my opinion, and it's backed up again by some studies. Cancer cells, even when they're dead or dying, circulate in the blood. We now know circulating tumor cells, we want to get them out. Everything goes through the liver, everything in your body, all the outside stuff, all the inside stuff. So you want to cleanse your liver. What it does is open the bile duct, exit really fast. It's a great idea, I think. It doesn't preclude anything else, but it's a very useful tool amongst many. On our website, the drop-down menu that says information by cancer type, if you hover over that, just under it, it says alternative medicine. You click on that, and on alternative therapies, excuse me. If you go to the alternative therapies page, you can see how to do a coffee enema the really healthy, friendly way, not with that hard plastic thing they sell you in the drugstore.
All right, thank you so much.
And I'm sure you agree the coffee should be organic. And do you have a feeling about the difference between roasted coffee beans and green coffee beans?
I don't know green, and I don't think that's been looked at, but the coffee that I use is specially prepared to be used for coffee enemas. It's higher in catechins and other nutrients that are specific for coffee enemas. The most important thing, and I'm sure you've all thought of this, but the most important thing is please cool it to room temperature while you're doing it.
Thank you, Anne.